The number one branders in the universe is the United States.
African creators, make una listen to this man, because I keep saying it that we should limit how we chase Western validation and how we allow them to tell our own stories. I did discuss with some persons. These guys were like Hollywood movies, these Nigerian movies, they do this. But I've seen top A, class A Nigerian movies that African stories were told, and most of which were told like in the rural setting, like those days where they don't wear clothes and all those things. When you watch some movies like Ajoche, you will see how African stories were told. When you watch movies like Chetam, you see how spiritual African stories were, told in terms of traditional spirituality. You see a lot of these movies, half of a Yellow Sun, although, and you see a lot of these classic movies. You understand? So now, this is reflective on our music culture, because a lot of people don't really import foreign culture into their music style. That is what we are telling. And now the Hollywood is telling us that they are going to tell the story of Hush Puppy. Although the lives of Abu Dumo, through Ebony TV and a lot of others really try to bid for that franchise so that they could tell the Hush Puppies story better. Because if you allow these foreign people tell them, then they did bias sometimes. A lot of people will say 50 Cent now black. No. How well does 50 Cent represent Africa? You know, go fit compare 50 Cent representation of, African to that of Chris Brown, to that of, Rick Ross. You understand? To that of Akon. You understand? So to that of Wyclef. That is something you got to understand about that, about the whole story. So I want you guys to listen to this man so that you go understand where I always argue from.
When I see movies like Wakanda, with due respect to the actors, that is Hollywood's version of what Africa is. That is plastic Africa. That is not real Africa. We must not have an Africa that is made in the image of Hollywood. We must have an Africa that is made in our own image. And I would have loved to see that Africa being created in Nollywood, in Nigeria, or here in Kenya. So let us not allow Hollywood to define Africa for us. We must define Africa for us, ourselves, through theater and art. And it's being done. When you watch the movies that are made in Nigeria, I feel them. When I see movies made in Tanzania, I feel them. When I see movies made in South Africa, I feel them. When I see some of the movies even being made here in Kenya, I feel them. I can relate to them. Not the razzmatazz that you see in Hollywood movies, complete with artificiality and things that really are in people's imaginations, which is not bad, but they had better not imagine for us. We are capable of imagining. If we take the money that is in Africa that is wasted, in fact, you may wish to know that African countries at one time did actually say that they are going to put 0.25% of their budgets into research. And there is not a single African country that I know that does not have a Ministry of Culture. Not a single one of them. And that is the conduit via which we can make art and theater to thrive.
So now you listen to this guy Lumumba, and then a lot of people they talk about this, and I really agree with him 100% because this Hollywood movie is all about science fiction, all those kind of imaginations and all those things, and a lot of people are being thrilled with that. But when they tell their African stories, like normal stories, like the gods of our lands and all those kind of things, they are not in tune with that. So that is, these people are disconnected from reality. This is your own environment. They are telling stories about your own environment. Instead of you to learn from it and help to spread and export the story, like other things, you are now importing another person's stories to live in an environment where another reality is. So that is something I got to understand. So let's listen to Akon again on this because I got to actually put this here. Akon said this.
This world is all about branding and marketing. The number one branders in the universe is the United States. They made United States seem like it's the best place in the world to be. It's the land of the free, home of the brave. I go there to find and chase my dreams. We have to be able to tell our own stories. Directors, filmmakers, entertainers, it's going to be clearly, and the press, is going to be your job to redefine how people think about Africa. Because you're here, you see what's going on. You clearly can see in a vivid picture the good, the bad, and the ugly. What you choose to put out there is what the world is going to get. Because I can tell you right now, in Chicago alone, there's more people dying in Chicago than there was in the war in Iraq. But you would never see that. There's a lot of things that's happening in the U.S. that you would never see because they choose to show you what they want you to see. It's about country integrity. You have a certain reputation you have to keep. No one puts their family business out into the street. One of the problems we have in Africa is that when something happens, the press is quick to put out negative energy and quick to put out a negative story. And then that story goes onto internet and other broadcasting systems take it and they post it. So when you look at places like Kenya, for instance, that I know of, maybe two terrorist attacks, but it was everywhere. So now people was afraid to go to Kenya because somebody shot up the mall. But then when you look online, there was over 25,000 attacks in the U.S., but you only knew about maybe 5 or 6. So we have to really rebrand. And then when you look at how the world perceives Africa, they're right. You know, you see zebras, lions, tigers, bears. Oh my. You get to the point where you think Africa's just a big jungle. The images that they're showing of Africa is historical images. This is way before civilization. This is when they were still, battling with spears, like times of Shaka Zulu. No, I'm serious. But then when you look at the U.S., they're showing Superman, Batman, Where is our
You hear
Superman?
now?
Where is our, Shaka Zulu should be a superhero today.
Voice.
Shaka Zulu should be a superhero today. So this is what I'm saying, that how are we telling African stories? We need to actually understand it from a different point of view. We need to understand it because we need to stay reflective even in our own music. I love when music tells a better story. So that is why I hinge on Davido, because this guy resonates what's actually working out in the street, although he's always putting it in the good side, like, women, happy life and all those things. But we still listen to the lies of Two-Face. When you listen to this guy's, kind of demography and all those things, like songs, you get to understand that Two-Face has actually spoken like the days of, One Love, the days of, that one when they say, to all of the shady politicians, when go fail, and, you kind of listen that these guys actually told African stories. So now, how do we package it better to sell it out there? So when you listen to the lies of, when you pick up, let's say, Davido, Wizkid now, for example, one of the biggest Wizkid's song is telling a story about his life in Africa, Lagos. That is Oju Elegba. So that is one of the biggest Wizkid's, song. When I pick techno, for example, one of his biggest songs is he told a story of Nigeria, like NEPA don't take light, NEPA. You listen to techno. That is one of the biggest. So that is a story being told. When you listen to one of the biggest of Burna Boy, recently is him sampling an African artist and trying to tell African stories, struggle and all those kind of things from it. Like anybody, he sampled Angelique Kidjo. That is one of the things we need to actually look at at all those things. So when you tell these stories, Oyibo, they get itching ear. They want to hear the African stories from the Africans themselves. So that is why we need to really understand it from that, point of view. So we need to actually understand it. So a lot of people where they condemn African movies and all those kind of things, guys, understand one thing: you are being brainwashed by this Hollywood thing. Love you guys.